Hello, everybody. This your girl. I wanted to talk about Halloween. I know that last year I had talked about it, and it's important that I talk about it again. I know that this is the Day of the Dead. A lot of Christians celebrate Halloween. People go out, wear costume, buy Halloween candy, have the kids dress up for school. Halloween parties go on. And see, Halloween falls on the 31st on the Sunday. We know that it's always been the 31st, but it falls on the Sunday of this year, which would be this coming Sunday. And we know that the day before Halloween is Beggars Night, where people go out, the kids and everything go out and trick or treat. Okay, so let's talk about Halloween. What is its origin? How did it get started, everything else. Okay, so I'm going to be doing some reading. And, this is the content right here, the ancient origin of Halloween, All Saints Day, Halloween comes to America, history of trick-or-treating, Halloween parties, Halloween movies, All Soul Days and Soul Cakes, black cats and ghosts on Halloween, and Halloween matchmaking and lesser known rituals. Okay? So Halloween is a holiday celebrated, Halloween is a holiday celebrated each year on October 31st, and Halloween 2021 will occur on Sunday, October 31st. The tradition originated with the ancient Celtic, and it is pronounced as Celtic, festival of Samhain. That is pronounced Samhain, okay? When people would light bonfires, wear costumes to ward off ghosts. Okay, do you hear me? So let's read that again. Halloween is a holiday celebrated each year on October 31st, and Halloween 2021 will occur on Sunday, October 31st. The tradition originated with the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, when people would light bonfires and wear costumes to ward off ghosts. In the 8th century, Pope Gregory III designated November 1st as a time to honor All Saints. Soon, All Saints Day incorporated some of the traditions of Samhain. The evening before was known as All Hallow Eve, and later Halloween. Okay, so Hallow means holy. Okay. Over time, Halloween evolved into a day of activities like trick-or-treating, carving jack-o'-lanterns, festive gathering, donning costumes, and eating treats. So let's talk about the origins and forget the commercials and everything. Okay, Halloween origins date back to the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain. Or they have it pronounced here Samhain, but we'll say Samhain for now because they have other pronunciation that says that's Samhain. Okay, the Celts who lived 2,000 years ago, mostly in the areas that is now Ireland, United Kingdom, and northern France, celebrated this New Year on November 1st. This date marked the end of summer and the harvest, at the beginning of the dark, cold winter, a time of year that was often associated with human death. Celts believed that on the night before the new year, the boundaries between the worlds of the living and the dead became blurred. On the night of October 31st, they celebrated Samhain, when it was believed that the ghosts of the dead returned to the earth. In addition to causing trouble and damaging crops, Celts thought that the presence of the other worldly spirits made it easier for the Druids or Celtic priests to make predictions about the future. For a people entirely dependent on the volatiles natural world. These prophecies were an important source of comfort during the long, dark winters. To commemorate the event, Druids built huge sacred bonfires. So, to commemorate the event, Druids built huge sacred bonfires where the people gathered to burn crops and animals as sacrifices to the Celtic deities. During the celebration, the Celts wore costumes, typically consisting of animal heads and skins, and attempted to tell each other's fortunes. When the celebration was over, they relit their hearth fires, which they had extinguished earlier that evening, from the sacred bonfires to protect them during the coming winter. Okay? So we talk about the origins of Halloween. Right there where it came from. Uh okay, let me read this. Did you know 1/4 of all candy sold annually in the United States is purchased for Halloween? Okay, no. Anyway, let's get back to history. By 43 AD, the Roman Empire had conquered the majority of the Celtic territory. In the course of the 400 years that they ruled the Celtic lands, two festivals of the Roman origin were combined with the traditional Celtic celebration of Samhain. The first was Firlelo. Yeah, I had to forgive my pronunciation. Firlelo. To forgive my pronunciation of that word. Firlea, okay? Firlea. A day in late October, and forgive my pronunciation if I didn't say it right. Okay, let's start again. The first was Firlea, a day in late October when the Romans traditionally commemorated the passing of the dead. The second was a day to honor Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. The symbol of Pomona is the apple, and the incorporation of this celebration into Samhain probably explains the tradition of bobbing for apples that is practiced today on Halloween. Okay, All Saints Day. On May 13th, 609 AD, Pope Boniface the fourth dedicated the Pantheon in Rome in honor of all Christian martyrs, and the Catholic feast of All Martyrs' Day was established in the Western Church. Pope Gregory III later expanded the festival to include All Saints as well as All Martyrs and moved the observance from May 13th to November 1st. So you see how All Saints Day, it was on May 13th, and then it was moved when Pope Gregory III came in power or was over the church from May 13th to November 1st. By the 9th century, the influence of Christianity had spread into the Celtic lands, where it gradually blended with and supplanted older Celtic rites or rites. In 1000 AD, the church made November 2nd All Souls Day, a day to honor the dead. It widely believed today that the church was attempting to replace the Celtic Festival of the Dead with a related church-sanctioned holiday. Okay, so you know where Halloween originated from. It was the church. It was the Day of the Dead. Okay, and then it was made. They had created in 609 on May 13th to be All Saints Day, and then it was moved when the Pope was Gregory the Third. It was moved to November 1st. So instead of the Day of the Dead, it was All Saints Day, and the 31st of October became the eve of All Hallow Day. And that's where Halloween got its name, because it was actually the eve of All Hallow Day, because November 1st was All Saints Day instead of the Day of the Dead. Okay, so we know that on the 31st, that the Celtics wore costumes. They got with the Druid priests. There was animals that was sacrificed. And then they took the bonfires that they used to sacrifice the animals, took back to their homes to light their home for protection. Okay. And then the Catholic Church came into power. The Roman Empire came and took over that land and brought in their tradition. Then later on, when Rome was being Christianized or became Christian, then they started changing and making this pagan holiday. They trying to Christianize the pagan holiday by honoring all the saints that died. Not just the martyrs, but those that were saints as well. So All Souls Day was celebrated similarly to Samhain, with big bonfires, parades, and dressing up in costumes as saints, angels, and devils. All Saints Day celebrations was also called All Hallow or All Hallow Mass. And the night before it, the traditional night of Samhain in the Celtic regions began to be called All Hallow Eves or eventually Halloween. Okay, so again, October 31st was not a day for Christians to be celebrating. This was because you notice that when it came to America, it went back to its pagan roots anyway. And you got witches that celebrate this because this is their holiday. They still do their sacrifices and stuff. But the Catholic Church tried to Christianize this day by making it November 1st as All Saints Day and the 31st as All Hallow Eve. Okay, so let's talk about that. Halloween comes to America. The celebration of Halloween was extremely limited in the colonial New England because of the rigid Protestant belief system there. Halloween was much more common in Maryland and the southern colonies. As the beliefs and customs of different European ethnic groups, and the American Indians mush, a distinctly American version of Halloween began to emerge. The first celebration included play parties, which were public events held to celebrate the harvest. Neighbors would share stories of the dead, tell each other's fortunes, dance, and sing. Again, you still got stories about the dead, so tell each other fortunes and all that. And it's believed that when the Irish came over, because part of those lands was Celtic, and the Irish knew these traditions very well, that they brought these traditions over to America. Okay? Because we know America was made up of all ethnic groups. The American Indians was originally here, but there were other people who sailed over exploring these lands. And people came to get away from what was going on in their country. Like they wanted to have their own beliefs and not be up under some system that forced them to believe a certain way. So they came to America. like the Puritans and the Pilgrims, you know. So here's another fact about Halloween. Did you know more people are buying costumes for their pets? Americans spent 490 million on costumes for their pets in 2019, more than double what they spent in 2010. So back to history. Colonial Halloween festivities also featured the telling of ghost stories and mischief makings of all kinds. By the middle of the 19th century, annual autumn festivals were common, but Halloween was not yet celebrated everywhere in the country. In the second half of the 19th century, America was flooded with new immigrants. These new immigrants, eventually, especially the million of Irish fleeing the Irish potato famine, helped to popularize the celebration of Halloween nationally. Now, the history of trick or treating. Borrowing from European traditions, Americans began to dress up in costumes and go house to house asking for food or money, a practice that eventually became today's trick or treating tradition. Young women believed that on Halloween they could divine the name or appearance of their future husband by doing tricks with yarn, apple paring, or mirrors. Or pairing rather, apple pairing or mirrors. I'm sorry. Now, how trick or treating became a Halloween tradition. In the late 1800s, there was a move in America to mold Halloween into a holiday more about communities and neighborly get togethers than about ghosts, pranks, and witchcraft. At the turn of the century, Halloween parties for both children and adults became the most common way to celebrate the day. Parties focused on games, food of the season, and festive costumes. Again, this does not sound like a holiday that Christians should be celebrating because this holiday is deeply into paganism. And it doesn't matter how they try to make it a saint's day and all that, it still went back to its origins. It's just like where the word bad, when they was trying to make it sound good. Like, oh, that's bad to mean good. It still went back to its origin of it being bad. Parents were encouraged by newspapers and community leaders to take anything frightening or grotesque out of Halloween celebration. Because of these efforts, Halloween lost most of its superstitious and religious overtones by the beginning of the 20th century. Okay? And I know a lot of churches celebrate Halloween, they call it Holy Ween instead of Halloween. It's still you still celebrate a pagan holiday. Okay, Halloween parties. By the 1920s and the 1930s, Halloween had become a secular but community center holiday with parades and town-wide Halloween parties as the featured entertainment. Despite the best efforts of many schools and communities, vandalism began to plague some celebrations in many communities during this time. By the 1950s, town leaders had successfully eliminated, I'm sorry, you have to forgive me. By the 1950s, town leaders had successfully limited vandalism, and Halloween had evolved into a holiday directed mainly at the young. Due to the high numbers of young children during the 50s baby boom, parties moved from town civic centers into the classrooms or homes where they could be more easily accommodated. Okay, so It seemed like, by the 1950s is how they was targeted to the young people, just like the music is that you see on today with the little Nas and all of that's targeted to the young people. And that's because the devil is trying to get them. I mean, he'd get anybody at any age, but he's trying to get them young, okay? Especially because he knows that a lot of things happen in somebody's youth. Uh, if you look at somebody that is dealing with a lot of mental issues, it could be involved with what happened in their youth, what was going on in their youth. And when I talk about Aleister Crowley, you'll be surprised that he had believed in getting a young boy as you to have sex with so that he could deal with him psychologically and leave him permanently scarred for the rest of his life, battling with them, especially those who survived that, dealing with demons and everything else. Because a lot of times when kids deal with traumatic or trauma severely in their childhood, sometimes they develop multiple personalities. A lot of things happen to them psychologically, especially to those who are not in a church or who, you know, especially those who are not in the church, whose family is, they're not regular church goers. They don't pray in the home or something like that. Those types of, because a family that prays together stays together, and it limits a lot of things that goes on when you are praying and have prayer in your home. So between the 1920s and the 1950s, the century-old practice of trick-or-treating was also revived. Okay, so instead of women trying to get these two pairs of apples to try to trick somebody to marry them, or doing spells and all of that stuff. They had kids going out to people's homes and asking for, you know, basically candy and stuff. Okay, so by the 1920s and 50s, the century-old practice of trick-or-treating was also revived. Trick-or-treating was a relatively inexpensive way for an entire community to share the Halloween celebration. In theory, families could also prevent tricks being played on them by providing the neighborhood children with small treats. Thus, a new American tradition was born, and it has continued to grow. Today, Americans spend an estimated $6 billion annually on Halloween. So this holiday, they're gonna make a whole lot of money off this holiday alone. $6 billion, making it the country's second largest commercial holiday after Christmas. Another pagan holiday. Okay? Yeah, we don't talk about Christmas around that time when it comes up, okay? Now, Halloween movies, okay? And we're going to talk about these movies too, because you got these are a bunch of demonic movies, okay? Now, I could watch scary movies that deal with a person actually killing somebody, but when it comes to the spiritual and stuff, with demons or somebody being possessed or somebody come back from the dead or hunt you in your sleep like Freddy Krueger, that's a very demonic movie, okay? Halloween movies. Speaking of commercial success, Halloween movies have a long history of being box office hits. And for some reason or another, people love to hear scary stories around Halloween, watch scary movies around Halloween. And I was one of those people who did that because I bought Carrie and Halloween and all of that. And until I realized that these movies do not belong in my house, I don't have no business watching these movies. And I have seen all of the Halloween movies, except for not all of them. Let me take that back. I've seen 1, 2, and 3. I didn't see 4, 5, and H2O. I didn't see all of those. I seen Friday the 13th. I say Nightmare on Elm Street. Uh, I even see Beetlejuice. And I already talked about Beetlejuice. I haven't seen Hocus Pocus. So let's talk about these movies. Let's talk about these. Okay? The classic Halloween movie include Halloween franchise based on a 1978 original film directed by John Carpenter and starring um, Donald Pleasance, I guess, Nick Castle, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Tony Moran. In Halloween, a young boy named Michael Myers murders his 17-year-old sister and is committed to jail, only to escape as a teenager on Halloween night and seek out his old home, a new target. A direct sequel to the original Halloween was released in 2018, starring Jamie Lee Curtis and Nick Castle. A sequel to that, Halloween Kills, the the 12th film in Halloween franchise overall, was released in 2021. Okay? Because they know that these movies bring people, they know that making these movies, it brings people to the theater. They can make their money. Consider a classic horror film down to its spooky soundtrack, Halloween, inspired other iconic slasher films like Scream, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Friday the 13th. More family-friendly movies, Halloween movies include, now here's family-friendly Halloween movies that is also demonic, Hocus Pocus. That has a lot to do with witchcraft. Has a lot to do with witchcraft, magic. The Night Before Christmas, which was a Tim, he was the same guy who directed Batman. And we know all of his movies, I can't think of his last name right now, but all of his movies is kind of spooky. He directed the Batman that came out in 1990, Batman 1 and 2, with the Joker, and 2 with the Penguin. And you could tell when he does a movie. Okay, so he did do The Nightmare Before Christmas with a lot of Halloween stuff and all that in it. And like I said, I can't think of his name right now. Beetlejuice. We talked about Beetlejuice and how it had a lot of witchcraft, voodoo. Girl is sitting up there, and she's like a witch. She's the only person who can see the dead people in the house. They do a seance in a movie to bring out the dead people that once lived there. And it's just something else, okay? And it's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. So they have these Halloween movies and all that, even family friendly movies that they consider to be, showing magic and all the stuff about Halloween. Even some of your cartoons have it around this time of year, some of your sitcoms, and all of that. I remember when I was watching Martin and they did one on Halloween where some ghost was chasing around an apartment or something like that. They had one, I think that came out on Halloween, where they was going to buy a house and they got spooked up out of the house. But the one that was hunting them in an apartment, some type of ghost that came in as they was telling these spooky stories or whatever, stuff like that ain't too good. And they had one with the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air where they actually went to go see a psychic and they did a seance to bring Trevor, Hillary's fiance, back to talk to her or whatever else. And then all this weird stuff was happening the next day. He was having a dream and then he woke up out of that dream and the dream was about to come true again. The dream was about to come true. So, stuff like that, you need to just turn it off if you are a Christian, a saint of God. Let's talk about All Souls Day and soul cakes. Okay. The American tradition, Halloween tradition of trick-or-treating probably dates back to the early All Souls Days parades in England. During the festivals, or during these festivities rather, poor citizens would beg for food and families would give them pastries called soul cakes in return for their promise to pray for the family's dead relatives. Now, what in the world are we praying for dead relatives for? They're dead and gone. The dead knows nothing. So again, that would be considered. That falls along the lines of. That falls along the lines of. Uh, I'm thinking of familiar spirit, but it's not a familiar spirit. Is a spirit that comes dressed as a loved one. Okay, and we know that people do seances to communicate with the dead. But to me, none of these are good. It's a part of witchcraft of sorcery or something like that. Because you have a lot of Christians who believe that they dead loved ones come back as angels and watch over them and all of this stuff. So let me just move on. Um, let me just move on because Deuteronomy 18 comes to mind when I think about this. And speaking of Deuteronomy, before I read that, let me read Deuteronomy starting at the 10th verse. It says, "There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his daughter or his son to pass through the fire." That means you are not to be sacrificing your kids to deities and all of this stuff. Or that useth divination, or an observer of times, or an enchanter, or a witch, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. That's the word that I wanted to find. For all that do these things are abomination unto the Lord. And because of these abominations, the Lord thy God does drive them out from before thee. So when you are praying for dead ones or calling out to dead ones, to me, it's like you are a necromancer. And I'm willing to look that word up right now. And I know I don't have it on the screen. And you see a lot of this stuff in Beetlejuice where you have a lot of necromancers and stuff. People who do seances. And believe it or not, people do seances on Halloween. Okay? I have talked to a witch years ago, back in 1995, and she told me, "Oh, I believe in God, and I'm a Christian now and all this stuff." She said, "I just do good spells." She said, "What happened is that me and my friends was doing a seances, and an evil spirit came up out of doing that seances." She said, scared her so bad that, now she just do good spells. So she didn't stop doing witchcraft at all. And she wanted to hook me up with her husband's friend, co-worker, and everything. And the Lord gave me a dream about this co-worker, and I seen this co-worker in a dream. Didn't know it was him at the time. I talked to him on the phone and everything else. And when he came up to my job, I went on lunch and everything, but didn't go to lunch with him. I happened to see him, and he was the same man that was trying to terrorize my home in a dream. And I told her when I came back from lunch, I don't want to see him no more. I was 22. This dude was 38 at the time. And my mom, we had a church, and right before I moved to Niagara Falls, we had a church in Buffalo, and my mom happened to talk to me and found out about this dude. And at the time, we ain't had no cell phones. We had a house phone. And she was like telling me some stuff that, out of concern and everything. And I happened to see what she was talking about. So, anyway, just saying if my thing is still recording. So, a necromancer, I got the definition here. Divination by alleged communication with the dead. And you see that in all these superhero movies where Superman talked to his dead father, the Black Panther talked to his dead father, Wonder Woman talked to her dead boyfriend. And people are entertained by these movies. The movie Thor even talked to Odin while he's there. And these are gods and goddesses in these movies. Thor is a god. He's the Viking god. He represents the son of God in the Viking religion. And Odin is the father god. And Juno is the mother god. And Wonder Woman represents the Diana god. The goddess Diana. She's a goddess. So, let me go back up. That during the festivities, poor citizens would beg for food, and families would give them pastries called soul cakes in return for their promise to pray for the family's dead relatives. Okay? Your relatives are dead. Now, the distribution of soul cakes was encouraged by the church as a way to replace the ancient practice of leaving food and wine for roaming spirits. The practice, which was referred to as going a souling, was eventually taken up by children who would visit the houses in their neighborhoods and be given food and money. The tradition of dressing in costumes for Halloween has both European and Celtic roots. Hundreds of years ago, winter was an uncertain and frightening time. Food supplies often ran low, and for the many people afraid of the dark, the short days of winter were full of constant worry. Okay, so you remember they had to hunt for their food. They had to grow crops and hunt for their food and everything else. And, with winter coming, they can't plant anything. In the wintertime, they couldn't plant. So they had to basically hunt, and, the food supply was short and all of this stuff. They had no grocery stores back then. So all these traditions and rituals came about. On Halloween, when it was believed that ghosts came back to the earthly world, people thought that they would encounter ghosts if they left their homes. Okay? So, the tradition of costumes were created because these people thought, because there was so many deaths in the wintertime, a low shortage of food and stuff, that these ghosts or spirits were coming back to get them. So it said on Halloween, when it was believed that ghosts came back to the earthly world, people thought that they would encounter ghosts if they left their homes. To avoid being recognized by these ghosts, people would wear masks when they left their home after dark so that the ghosts would mistake them for fellow spirits. On Halloween, to keep ghosts away from their houses, people would place bowls of food outside their homes to appease the ghosts and prevent them from attempting to enter. Now, black cats and ghosts on Halloween. Halloween has always been a holiday filled with mystery, magic, and superstition. Do y'all see that? And we got Christians sit up here get ready to celebrate Halloween. Halloween has always been a holiday filled with mystery, magic, and superstition. It began as a Celtic end of summer festival during which the people felt especially close to deceased relatives and friends. For these friendly spirits, they set parts they set places at the dinner table, left trees on doorsteps and along the side of the road, and lit candles to help loved ones find their way back to the spirit world. Today's Halloween ghosts are often depicted as more fearsome and malevolent, and our customs and superstitions are scarier too. We avoid crossing paths with black cats, afraid that they might bring us bad luck. This idea has its root in Middle Age, where many people believed that witches avoided detection by turning themselves into black cats. Okay, so this says read more why. Okay, let's go further. We try not to, and I know it says read more why black cats are associated with bad luck. Okay, y'all remember the mummy? And I know some of y'all have watched that too, and I encourage Christians not to watch it, okay, anymore. He is a guy who was brought back from the dead. In his lifetime, he had practiced black magic, and he was buried alive. Actually, he was mummified alive because he had killed the pharaoh after he had stole the pharaoh's mistress, and he was mummified alive, and they brought him back and everything by reading from the Book of the Dead. So that has a lot of necromancy, witchcraft, magic, all of that, and all of that is up under witchcraft. Has a lot of witchcraft in it. Period. But one thing in the movie, he was afraid of a black cat. So let us read this. We try not to walk under ladders for the same reason, okay? This is reading into the superstitions and all that stuff that people have. Step on a crap, break your mama black, and all this other stuff. This superstition may have come from the ancient Egyptians, who believed that triangles were sacred. Now you know why the pyramids was in triangles and all that stuff, and why those triangles might be on Earth, Wind, and Fire albums, because they believe that a lot of paganism as well. Maurice White was into numerology, astrology, metaphysics. So a lot of these songs was New Age. And they wanted to introduce TM to the black audience. So this superstition may have come from the ancient Egyptians, who believed that triangles were sacred. It also may have something to do with the fact that walking under a leaning ladder tends to be fairly unsafe. And around Halloween especially, we try to avoid breaking mirrors, stepping on cracks in the road, or spilling salt. The Halloween, matchmaking, and lesser known rituals. But what happened? I'm sorry, but what about the Halloween traditions and belief that today's trick-or-treaters have forgotten all about? Many of these obsolete rituals focus on the future instead of the past, and the living instead of the dead. In particular, many had to do with helping young women identify their future husbands and reassuring them that they would someday, with luck, by next Halloween be married. In the 18th century Ireland, a matchmaking cook might bury a ring in her husband's mashed potatoes on Halloween night, hoping to bring true love to the diner who found it. To the diner who found it. Okay, somebody might have a chipped tooth if they bite into that ring, you know. Uh, well, sometimes mashed potatoes, you don't basically, it's so soft that, they might just swallow it whole. They don't have to bite down on it, but, the ring could be just swallowed, bitten into. Well, I don't think they was thinking of that. In Scotland, fortune tellers recommended that an eligible young woman, name a hazelnut for each of her suitors, and then toss the nut into the fireplace. The nut that burns to ashes rather than popping and exploding, the story went, represented the girl's future husband. In some versions of this legend, the opposite was true. The nut that burned away symbolized a love that would not last. Another tale had it that if a young woman ate a sugary uh, concoction made out of walnuts, hazelnut, and nutmeg before bed on Halloween night, she would dream about her future husband. Young women toss apple peelings over their shoulders, hoping that the peelings will fall on the floor in the shape of their future husband's initials. Try to learn about their futures by peering at egg yolks floating in a bowl of water, and stood in front of the mirrors in darkened rooms holding candles and looking over their shoulders for their husbands' faces. Other rituals were more competitive. At some Halloween parties, the first guest to find or a bird, a bird on a chestnut hunt would be the first to marry. At others, the first successful apple bobber would be the first down the aisle. In other words, the bobbing of apples was for a mate. That's it. So I have spent about 48 minutes reading about Halloween. And, you know, the dark history behind Halloween is more chilling than you realize, okay? It's not a holiday for Christians, okay, at all, regardless of how Christianized they try to make it seem. Um, Here, Halloween is the spookiest night of the year. It's also a boon to the retail industry, even during a pandemic. According to the National Retail Federation, Halloween spending, and you have to forgive the pop-ups and all of that. Halloween spending in the U.S. is projected to reach $8 billion in 2020, with 58% of people planning on celebrating. Okay, and with more people indoors and looking, and this was last year, for a little cheer during the tough year, pet costumes are flying off the shelves. Halloween fever isn't contained to the U.S. either. In fact, people around the world celebrate the holiday in many different ways. But where did all these strange practices come from? Turned out a lot of these customs date back centuries. The holiday has changed over time, transforming from an ancient tradition to the flashy frights fest we know and love today. Okay, I don't know that. Let's take a look at the origin of some of our favorite Halloween traditions. Okay, Scottish poet Robert Burns helped to popularize the word Halloween. He helped to popularize the word Halloween. with his 1885 poem of the same name. Okay, wow. So, so where does the name itself comes from? According to the online etymology dictionary, it's actually two words smushed together. Hollow, or holy person, refer to the saints celebrated or All Saints Day, which is November 1st. And the "een" part of the word is a contraction of eve, or evening before. So basically, Halloween is just an old-fashioned way of saying the night before All Saints Day, also called Hallowmas or All Hallow Days. This comes from the fact that November 1st is All Saints Day, a Christian fest dedicated to celebrate the faithful departed, including all the saints. In Christian tradition, people started celebrating more feasts the night before they took place. Take Christmas Eve, for instance. We don't talk about Christmas, okay? Historians link Halloween to Samhain, the Celtic festival of the summers and celebrated in Ireland, Scotland, and the Isles of Man. According to the Celtic mythology, the veil between the other world and our world thins during Samhain, making it easier for spirits and souls for the dead to return. People would make offerings of food in order to get on the good side of these spirits and departed ancestors according to the mirrors. All Hallowtides, which included All Saints' Eve, All Saints' Day, and a subsequent All Souls' Day, was initially celebrated in the spring during the early years of the church. And then Pope Gregory the fourth rather, they said the third and the last one, but it's Gregory the fourth here, switched it to the current date in 837 according to the Britannico. His reasons were unclear, although influenced from Celtic factions of the church and the fact that it makes sense to commemorate death during the fall are possibilities. Okay, Halloween has come to be has, and I didn't talk about the carving of pumpkins and where that came from. That's also a mythology of the Celtics. Halloween comes close to be most closely associated with the pumpkins, but apples have played an important role in its history. After all, apples make numerous appearances in the Celtic mythology and are often connected to the other world. Bobbing for apples remains a popular party game. The reason, well, the practice used to be considered a form of divination performed around Halloween, according to the NPR. That's right. People would dunk their heads in a vase of water and try to bite into floating fruit in a quest to figure out their future spouse. Ladies would mark an apple and toss it into the tub. The thinking was they'd be destined to whoever pulled it out of the water. Okay, jack-o'-lantern symbolized a faithful deal with the devil. The cherry jack-o'-lantern symbolized a faithful deal with the devil. If you ever met the devil on a darkened road, don't try to trick him into climbing into a tree. Otherwise, you might end up like Irish folk figure jack-o'-lantern. Modern day Okay, intricately, intricately. You have to forgive me. Modern day intricately. Yeah, forgive me. Okay. Yeah, forgive me for mispronouncing that word. I'm gonna try this again. Modern day intricately. Okay, y'all forgive me. Y'all know what it is. Uh, design pumpkins intricately. I will say it again. Modern day intricately design pumpkins creation certainly makes for impressive decoration. Okay, so back in the day, folks in Ireland dubbed their carved fiery turnips jack-o'-lanterns, thanks in part to an ominous legend. And forgive me for my pronunciation, okay, and mispronouncing words, okay? Please forgive me. One night, a conniving local drunkard named Jack trapped the Prince of Darkness in a tree by hacking a sign of the cross into the bark. In exchange for letting Satan climb down, Jack had him vow to never claim his soul. Okay? Now, this is a legend. This is a mythology. This is a myth, an Irish myth. Okay? Jack proceeded to act like a jerk his whole life. When he died, he was not allowed in heaven, so he tried to return to his old pal, the devil, but Satan upheld his end of the deal, hurling a piece of coal from hell at the dead man. Now, we know that this is definitely a myth because Satan is not in hell. If you read your Bible, you know he's on this earth. Okay, him and a third of the angels fell to the earth. So Satan is not in hell. So people had this claiming that, oh, he's down in hell with this pitchfork and, red with a red tail, some type of tail and stuff, roaming around hell. No, he's on the earth. He's wreaking havoc on the earth. So we know this is a myth. But anyway, the myth goes that but Satan upheld his end of the deal, hurling a piece of coal from hell at the dead man for good measure, left without anywhere to go. Now, and we also know this is a myth because Jack's soul is going to be either, when he go and stand before judgment, if this was a person, he would have been either in heaven or in hell. Okay, rested, or he would, when Jesus, and this is when Jesus come back and he goes there before judgment. Okay, right now I believe that people who have died is resting. So anyway, left without anywhere to go, Jack placed the blazing coal in a turnip to use as a lantern. The dead man then set out, doomed to wander until he can find an eternal resting place. So that's what the jack-o'-lantern came in, from a myth that was created by the Irish about a guy named Jack who made a deal with the devil. And because he did all this bad stuff, he couldn't go into heaven, but he definitely couldn't go into hell neither. So he was left wandering with a lit turnip. And nowadays people use a pumpkin to carve out, but it was a turnip back in those days. So modern day trick-or-treating is confluence of various traditions. Ancient Celts dressed up as evil spirits in order to confuse demons, according to the Smithsonian magazine. In medieval England, sowers or solar would go around begging rich folks for soul cakes on Halloween. Instead of threatening to play tricks, however, they prayed for people's souls in return for the cakes, according to the um, complete teacher's almanac. Throughout medieval Europe, murmuring, dressing in disguise in busy neighborhoods while dancing, playing music, and doing tricks was a popular major fest day. Fest days, okay? So, why would anybody want to celebrate this day? You had the the Bloody Mary, the Bloody Mary rather ritual has unclear origin. Well, I don't want to go into that. Uh, People might do that on Halloween too. Go into the mirror and call out this woman that we know that this was the Mary of Wales who ruled, who was a queen, and she was a very harsh queen at that. Okay. Um, I didn't know this was associated with Halloween at all. But let's go with the black cats have been associated with supernaturals for hundreds of years. Black cat costumes are particularly popular on Halloween. We know, and I'm about to read it again, in the Middle Ages, black cats were often portrayed as as the familiars of witches, which is likely to be the origins of the distrust with which they are regarded in America, where early Puritan settlers rejected anything associated with the devil and witch. Chloe Rhodes wrote in Black Cats and Evil Eyes, a book on old-fashioned superstition. According to History.com, it was also believed in the Middle Ages that witches transformed into black cats to conceal themselves. Well, let me go back to Bloody Mary, because people might do this on Halloween. I don't know. I hope not, because this is very demonic. Late folklorist and UC Berkeley Professor Alan Dundes. Alan Dundes wrote an article titled "Bloody Mary in the Mirror." Okay, let me read that again because I mispronounced a couple of words. Folklorist, the late folklorist and UC Berkeley professor Alan Dundes wrote an article titled "Bloody Mary in the Mirror," a ritual reflection of free and pubescent anxiety about the various origins and practices of Bloody Mary rituals, also known as Maryworth or Mary Wales. Many versions of the ritual include the elements of a girl peering into a mirror, often in a bathroom, darkness, blood, chanting, and the appearance of the cursed Mary. Now, we know that this is demonic. Okay, and I heard about this too, where people would be in a dark bathroom in front of a mirror calling this person out. Uh, you're calling us spirits, okay, and familiar spirits at that. We know that there was a queen, I believe she was the Queen of England, named Mary. She was very ruthless, and that's the traditions. But anyway, back to Halloween. Um, this is all demonic. It's very demonic. And you can look up the origin of Halloween and read just what I read from Wikipedia. You can Google it and all of that. And I'm encouraging Christians to stop celebrating these holidays. A lot of witches still celebrate this holiday. Okay, its origin is deeply into paganism. It is deeply rooted into paganism. People use that day, the 31st, to make sacrifices. They wore costumes to disguise themselves from ghosts that they believe was roaming in the earth, and blaming it for the reason why there was so many deaths in the wintertime and food shortages. People was playing tricks on folks. People was casting spells to find mates and all this stuff. People thought that black cats were witches and stuff, that they was witches that transformed into a cat to disguise themselves and all this other crazy foolishness. So it has this dark origin, and you got people in America that carving out the pumpkins and setting it up there with a candle lit inside. They sit up here buying Halloween costume, got the candy, get ready to go trick or treating, and all this other stuff, not knowing what they're doing. You got people in the church that does this. They'll sit up there and have the Halloween parties and call it Holy Wing. Now the Catholic Church did that too. They moved All Saints Day to November 1st so that they could sit up there and say Halloween is, or the day of Samhain was now All Hallow Eve, which it later became Halloween. So it's like it came back to its roots with the costume wearing and the Bobby for Apple and the ghost stories. And the people sit here doing seances on Halloween. It is an evil holiday. So I encourage all Christians, to stop celebrating this day and to pray. On October 31st, pray. Okay? And also, let me do one last thing. Okay, this is what I want you guys to. This is Antoine LaVey, and you see where it says founder of the Church of Satan. I'm glad that Christian parents let their kids worship the devil at least one night out of the year. I'm not going to play the video because that'd be copyrighted, but you see this? So, anyway, you guys, have a blessed and wonderful day. Please stop trick-or-treating and celebrate this holiday. Even if the person, well, he's dead now, this pastor of the Church of Satan, even who has been conjuring up spirits and all that when he was alive and doing magic and rituals and all this stuff, even posted this. And I'm glad that Christian parents let their children worship the devil at least once a year. If you don't know who he is, let's take a quick look at it before I go. Okay, so I have pulled up Wikipedia. Antoine LaVey. Antoine Salvador LaVey. Born, Howard Stanton LaVey. Okay, was an American author, musician, and occultist. He was the founder of the Church of Satan and the religion of Satanism. He authored several books, including the Satanic Bible, the Satanic Rituals, the Satanic Witch, the Devil's Notebook, and Satan Speaks. In addition, he released 3 albums, including the Satanic Mass, Satan Takes a Holiday, and Strange Music. Do you see this, people? He played a minor on-screen role and served as a technical advisor for the 1975 film The Devil's Reign. It served as the host and narrator of Nick Bogus' 1989 Mondo film Death Scenes. Okay. Now, let me look up something right quick, and I will be right back, okay? And actually, that means I'm going to be pausing this film for a minute.